This is the Sony A7 IV. It's been out for about 6 months now, and after some real world testing, well, it's not perfect. So today we're going to dive into what I like and what I don't like about the Sony A7 IV. First off, one of the things I love about the Sony A7 IV, well, here, I'll show you. We have to pop the lens off, and when you look on the inside here, you'll see that the sensor is covered, as opposed to in the older cameras, the A7 III. Even the A7S III and the R4 don't have this shutter capability of bringing down the shutter to block off dust when you're changing lenses. So that's one thing I love about the A7 IV. And that feature is a real lifesaver for me because I travel a lot and I love going to places, especially when I go to the deserts or to places that are really dusty. This allows me to change my lens with a lot more confidence that, you know, it's not gonna get as dirty. This doesn't guarantee 100% that it's gonna be, you know, dust-free all the time, but it does give you an extra layer of protection and security when you're changing out your lenses. One thing I really love about the button layout of it is that they moved the record button, which used to be right underneath the eyepiece on the A7 III, and now it's on top near your shutter button. While you can configure custom buttons on the cameras to also do that functionality on the A7 III, it's just a nicer move, and I really hated just having to push the record button, which was up here, it was just a really awkward place. So I'm just glad that they moved that now closer to the shutter, which I think just makes a lot more sense. If you're someone coming from using the A7 III, then this will blow your mind. This is something that's just super useful, flipping it around like this if you're vlogging, if you're walking around so you can actually see what's going on. And then if you're doing crazy low angles and all of that, you can flip it and face it upward so that you can actually see what you're shooting, as opposed to the screen on the A7 III, which is a little tough in various angles to actually be able to see it fully. So that's definitely a feature that now with this, I just can't live without. So I went to Yosemite National Park a few months ago and filmed a documentary called The Impossible Shot. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you check it out. And I used the A7 IV as my primary photography camera. The whole entire trip, I took 95% of my shots on this camera to test it out, and it just looks stunning. From amazing low light shots of the Golden Gate Bridge at night to stunning shots in Yosemite National Park, this camera made photography a breeze. With the 33 megapixels in this camera, I was really able to maximize the resolution of all of the images in case I needed to crop later, or if I wanted to go and do prints, then I have insane resolution to do it. In that documentary, in addition to taking about 95% of my photos on this camera, I also took about 30 to 40% of the video on this camera as well. And this is my single favorite part of the A7 IV. On the front here, you can see a little latch. And on the back, you can see what that latch actually is for. It allows you to switch between photo and video mode, and that allows you to keep settings for photo and video separate. So with the flip of a switch, I can easily switch between photo and video on the same camera without having to readjust my settings all the time. That feature alone is seriously worth so much in my opinion. It makes this camera amazing because it just allows you to switch back and forth so quickly, and especially for someone like me who travels a lot and loves capturing video and photo, this just makes life easy. I really hope they keep this feature in all of their cameras going forward. As far as image quality goes, I've been nothing but impressed with this camera. And honestly, there's very, very few faults with this camera. I think it's one of the best cameras on the market right now. That being said, that leads me to the biggest flaw with this camera, and that is 4K 60. With 4K becoming more and more mainstream and a lot of people utilizing it even when they plan on exporting 1080p settings just to be able to get that better resolution, this camera really falls short at 4K 60. 4K 60 on the A7 IV has a 1.5 times sensor crop. What that means is it essentially becomes a crop sensor camera. And right now I have on the 28 to 75 Tamron lens, and at 28 millimeters, with the 1.5 sensor crop, that becomes 42 millimeters. So now my minimum focal length is not nearly as wide as what I would want it to be if I'm doing travel. The 1.5 times crop only affects 4K 60, it does not affect 4K 24 and 4K 30, and it does not affect any of the 1080p settings. So that being said, if you're someone who does not film in 4K 60, then this camera is game changing and will help you in both photography, videography, and beyond. So for travel though, this camera crushes it and is my main go-to for photos and video because it's just an all-in-one package. 6 months after its release, is the A7 IV still worth it? I would say for 95% of people, yes. So for anyone that's looking for a camera that does photo and video, I highly recommend the A7 IV because I've had a very, very amazing experience with it so far. I don't utilize 4K 60 a lot, so aside from that limitation, I've been able to pretty much do everything that I wanted with it, and I love this camera, and it's my primary camera for the vast majority of things, especially when it comes to travel. So that's it for this video. I hope you found that helpful, especially if you're on the fence about getting the A7 IV or not. I really just want to say that this camera is really, really good and really fits all of my needs. And so even if they came out with the A7 V tomorrow, then I wouldn't have a need to upgrade to it, and I would just stick with this. So if you have any questions about the A7 IV, or if you have any experiences with the A7 IV, positive or negative, feel free to leave that in the comments section down below, and I will see you guys in the next one.